Oh, not even gonna intro. That's wild.
I don't remember the intro.
How do you not remember the
It's a
intro that you've
podcast.
been doing for 2 weeks?
I don't think we had one. I just said welcome, and and I'm
Elijah, you
Elijah.
made one last week. What happened?
Okay, this is the first time I'm doing it on a computer. Of course I'm going to be all over the place.
Bro, there's a difference between Charlie Energy and forgetting. You literally forgot.
Welcome to But It's a Podcast with your host, me, Elijah, and Derek. As you notice, things are a bit different today because we're on a computer for once. Why did you bring the card back?
Putting it away?
Just delete it. Okay. Today's game in question is Tabletop Simulator. We do also have a special guest.
Hello, is that my cue?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Theo. I guess I'm spectating today.
Wow. I guess I'm expecting.
I mean, I'm here.
Wasn't there a topic you really wanted to talk about, Derek?
We had a topic today. I could have swore today was just playing tabletop.
Because you messaged me, what was it, yesterday or today?
Was it? Hold on. I'm gonna have to open the good old trusty notepad because I keep forgetting to
It's in
do
Messenger.
stuff.
Yeah, there it is. Microsoft Excel Esports.
Oh, that. Talk about that again.
Yeah.
Okay.
While you explain it to
Like-
me, I'm gonna set up.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you know what it is, Theo, but I'll give you the briefest explanation from what I know. So
My guess is that it's passive Excel. But
no. Good pretend guess though. I'll give you 5 minutes. Microsoft Excel, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Microsoft Excel actually does have a actual esports league. Would you like me to continue and explain why or how
sure,
it works?
that's interesting.
Cost 2 or less.
Okay.
You did.
So, how it works is that there is a bunch of cases given that can be solved specifically using Microsoft Excel. So they have a limited amount of time to solve the problems given. There's multiple that can be given, and you have to find a way to creatively solve it using Excel. So far, they've had, I think, 5 to 6 years of televised events.
Wow.
They were apparently once shown on an ESPN channel,
Holy shit. Okay.
and they do actually have like actual training camps for this. And their championship was done recently, not too long ago. But they stream mainly from their YouTube channel, and watching it, if you don't understand Excel, will confuse you.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's gonna be like malfunction and stuff.
Yeah, that's just how it is, man. I was wondering what the hell's going on. Even from watching it, I was wondering what the hell's going on.
That's what
So- Today's topic would have been about, Microsoft Excel esports, but I'm only going to vary it to the topic we talked about today while we were in chat there.
What?
That small little conversation we talked about, or that little or small conversation we had when you mentioned Grand Blue Fantasy Rising,
Oh yeah.
and I happened to look at that random tier list video from Sajam. It
Oh,
only
this next
made
grader tier list thing.
yeah, it only made me realize the better topic would be why tier lists shouldn't matter and why do we do them.
Oh, okay. Should we just jump in the topic and just like give our opinions?
Oh, go for it. It always starts with opinions.
Hell yeah. All right. So tier lists don't matter, and they never matter, except when they do.
What?
That's
uh,
the weirdest sum up I've ever heard. I elaborate.
okay, so I guess like the question there is like, when does it matter?
We have
So,
we have yet to
but
determine
when you're
whether-
playing, like, okay, well, or I guess when I'm playing my own games, the tier list never matters because I only know my characters and I only know how to play against my opponent's characters, like
Right.
my usual play partners.
Mhm.
So like in that case, like tier list doesn't matter. Like in Guilty Gear, I play solo. He's been best in the game. He's been like mid tier, but I only know how to play him. I vaguely know other characters. Like same thing in Smash Bros. Like I know my one or two characters.
Mhm.
Uh, so like for an individual player, the tier list doesn't matter too much. I guess unless they're like at the beginning or the end of their career. Ending meaning like if they're going to tournaments and they're evaluating their own power level. Like
Mhm.
tier lists only matter like before the character select screen. It's all perception. Because as well as like the top tiers having the benefit of all the character knowledge or community knowledge, there's also a debuff for them because everyone knows how to play against them. And then the low tiers get an unknown buff because only few players know how to beat them. Unless of course they're so bad that like every generic strategy will beat them. But
Right.
nowadays stuff is so balanced. So like I guess that's a few places where tier lists matter and tier lists don't matter.
Right. So if I had to put my opinion on it, I'm not a fan of tier lists at any level. Even at so even at the level where value is attained from it, there's honestly no point. So I'm in agreement with you that there's a time when it doesn't matter. I just would agree to the extreme that there is never a time when a tier list matters. It's more of like a who do you perceive to be the best? Agreeing with you at the character select screen because it's more of a thought on paper, not a thought by experience. Because even using experience, you can't go that far. Because the phrase like any given Sunday kind of applies to anything and everything. Even if it doesn't, even if the actual day of Sunday is just a generic term, it means at any point can someone or something or any match that is unfavorable come out the other way. Elijah, besides it being your turn, you got anything?
I pass.
You passed the turn or you passed your
I
opinion?
passed priority.
Passed the turn.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Oh, you passed the turn. Oh, okay.
I put it in the
I wish you would have
chat.
told me that. So
Um,
I think there are times when a tier list does matter though. Um, but those times are never in game. It's always
Right.
thinking about the game.
mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe I think developing a tier list might help you a little bit in your understanding of the game,
Right.
because at least it gives you a like a place to compare your experience with someone else. So in terms of like playing Theory Fighter, that's where I think a tier list belongs.
Right.
That's I guess serious because there's always like content, like making entertainment.
True.
Fucking pot of greed.
It's because it's actually pot of greed. It's just I have to discard it when I do it. Because it just says if I have an Android leader, that's it. But go on, Theo. Sorry.
I think there's kind of a echo. Oh, it's gone now. Oh, it's back. I think it's on your side, Jared. Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you have like speakers next to the microphone?
I have a microphone next to those speakers. I'm trying to move them away.
Can you enable noise suppression on Discord?
I think it's on.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, never mind. It's not.
Let's see how it sounds.
Okay, never mind. I got it back.
Seems a bit better.
Yeah, no, I just turned it on now.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't. That's all my ideas about that so far. Now it's back.
I feel like it felt like we should have been able to talk about that longer. It really shouldn't be like a 10-second topic. But I guess
tier
it's
list.
not
So what makes you say? Well, yeah. So you brought in tier lists. So what makes you say tier lists are always inappropriate or like what was it that you said?
It was the phrase I used that to give a sum up. It's the concept of any given Sunday coming into fruition, because there's never a time when honestly no character can beat any character. It's just that there's a percentage that says that this character will beat this character.
Well, yeah. Oh, how does that lead into tier lists?
Because tier lists are literally a perception of you playing the game and who you played with.
Yeah.
Because if we had to use the best example, if you, me, and Elijah were to play a whole new game, we don't know how to play it, and as far as we know, we pick characters that either look cool or just look kind of stupid, and we just press buttons for some while. And then we were asked to make a tier list right after it. We would think I know our assumption would literally be based on the time that we played the game, who was the strongest, and then everyone else would either be in an I don't know territory, or we would perceive based on what we think they are, and then where they would fit in an actual list. But go some months down the line. Let's say we've been playing it for, we'll say 4 hours a day, once a week for like 2 months. We get that knowledge. Now we go make a tier list then, based on the time that you've played, with now having that experience. It would look either amazingly different or slightly different, because now you're adding knowledge in. But in any given day, a tier list can choose to not matter, because a grappler can kill a zoner can kill a mid-range character, a mid-range character can beat both a zoner and a regular person, but can also lose to a rushdown person. It's just any given Sunday at that rate.
So I think you pointed out something noteworthy, I guess, about the nature of tier lists, where it's not like prescriptive. It doesn't tell you how a game is going to go. It's just it's an expression of either an opinion about how a large group of games is going to go, or it's a collection of data which says like most games go in favor of X character.
Right.
So yeah, I guess a large takeaway from what you said was tier lists don't help you improve your singular games. It's really just to learn about what works in a meta. And so
Right.
like you said, like you're like month one meta of a new game. No one knows what's good. No one's unlocked like secret tech or found it. Um, so like whatever people explore first and succeed the most with is going to be the top of the tier list. And there's still lots of unknowns. The game could change. People could find new things and show that it's better. So like
Right.
a tier list is meant to distill a time frame or something.
Mhm.
So like that's the scope where it's useful, I suppose.
Right. Okay.
Like a friend of mine told me something he learned from like studying math in college. His professor used to say, "Every model is wrong, but sometimes useful."
Okay.
And a tier list is a model of a meta.
True. Hmm. Okay. I guess that's an equally fair assumption if you had to be very honest about it.
I think tier lists are fun too.
They're fun to make, no lie. They're fun to make. It's just like once you get to a certain point, it's kind of just like it's not gonna mean much here. Kind of just welcome to the jungle at that rate.
Welcome to the jungle.
Into the jungle.
Yeah, it's kind of just like one of those. I'm like, it's what does it really mean when I'm really looking at it? It's
Wait
like,
a minute. Here's a good example. Um, so we brought up the example of tier lists that are very young, or for games that are very young.
right.
But let's talk about a tier list for an old game. So I played Melee for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
the top 8 or the top 10 in that game is like solidified.
Right.
And tier lists have essentially not changed for 5, 10 years.
Right.
Um, and so in those cases, because so much is known about the game, the tier list is extremely useful. So if you're competitively minded, I guess that's the thing. You have to. The tier list is meant for winning. It's meant for expressing what wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to win a tournament, you have to weigh how good a character is versus other characters in the tier list, and then what your skills are as a player.
Right.
And putting those together lets you find the best combination of characters or the best single character for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is pretty useful.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
It was like your point stopped for a second.
Nah.
Yeah, I ended it on a question, kind of, but it is useful, and then I don't know where to go with that. Like, sure.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Ask the question again. I'm sorry.
It's not a question. It's just like the way I said it sounded like a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So tier lists are useful for competitive players. It lets them see what characters are good,
Right.
and then that's like one tool to help them pick a character. The other ones would be like see what they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
You know what kind of tier list I like? The food ones.
The food ones by Most Critical.
Or kind of like anyone, to be fair,
Oh shit.
because
I like
maybe
the
food is subjective.
Um,
yes,
what
but
color?
video games, or at least the winner of a video game is deterministic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it could be random as well.
Right.
Sensory.
Well,
Goes to leader.
so we could agree that something that is as devastatingly simple could be easy to determine. I guess if we had to be very frank about it.
I don't know where you got that. Uh, what I would take away from what we said is that tier lists are more useful as a game is older, and it's really only good with a lot of data. And if you're trying to win,
Well,
like
this
if you're
is
trying to
always
have fun, like the best character might be dumb, easy, and boring.
I use the best example of a game that's basically down to two characters. What about Well, no, we'll have to use the typical one. What about let's use Capcom versus SNK two, where like the meta is basically down to like five people, and basically 2 meter types.
Okay.
Did you hear my question, Theo?
You said I don't think I heard a question. You said
I said
I
so.
heard
Let's no.
there's
Let's use
SNK.
no.
There's like
Let's use
five characters
Capcom
and two
versus
types of meter.
yeah, where it's down to like basically five characters and only 2 meters excel well.
Okay.
Where it's more of like when you're using this meter, you have these three characters. But when you're using this meter, any character with a custom combo loop is basically a good character.
So that's our meta, I guess.
Nah, in Capcom vs SNK is Sagat, Cammy, Blanca, Vega, and well, Sagat, Cammy, Blanca, Vega when you're using, I guess, which is A meter, which is Alpha 2 meter, where you have custom combo chance, where they have loops on custom combo. Oh, also includes Sakura, and
Only
even
Street
for
Fighter characters. Got it.
and even for SNK characters, they like to use custom combo because if you use it with Iori, you can get Iori or Kyo, you get infinite uppercut because an
Pretty good.
uppercut can cancel into an uppercut in custom.
Sounds like a Dragon Soul.
It sounds like it, but custom combos in that game are basically have been it's like they're basically like massively overpowered.
All right. So how are we connecting this to the tier list though?
So in this case, in this game where you have 6 meters of opportunity, all of which give different advantages and all of which give different advantages, all of which have like no benefits and like no disagreements towards each character. It's more like a this is preferred versus it just being the correct thing to do. I'm more no. It's like I'm more in favor of I don't like it when something like that pops up because it encourages single play.
I'm not sure I follow what you're saying.
Um, I don't like when characters get like sort of identified as the only characters you can play in a game.
Interesting. Okay. So when the meta was solidified to have these only 5 or 6 characters and 5 or 6 playstyles, then that means uh, like the game's content was cut out from the community, at least the competitive community.
Mm-hmm.
It was cut down to those few characters. And you think a tier list? Well, I guess there's two presumptions there, right? There's like one, this is bad, or you don't like it, and then two, tier lists promote that bad environment.
Yeah. It's more
Okay,
of
I see that.
when it's more of when you let a game sort of get when you let a game sort of get like dumbed down. Not to use that word like in a very incorrect way, but it's like sort of the way it's being defined. When
Like
you let
simplified.
something get, when you let something get dumbed down that much, it sort of no it sort of like adds to the speculation that okay, only these characters are strong. Why would I encourage anyone to play anything else?
Well, if they have a reason to, right?
Yeah, if there's a
Like,
reason to.
right. So like the situation is the same in Melee. That's what I'm familiar with. So
Mm-hmm.
there's only even like maybe even like 4 or 5 top characters that are viable to solo win a tournament. Um, what is it like? Fox, Falco, Sheik, Marth,
Mm-hmm.
um, Buff.
Yeah,
Like
I
after
think they
that,
said
it's like character specialists. Like only a few people can play like
right,
Captain Falcon at top level.
right.
Um, and so essentially for the competitive Melee community, the game itself of Melee is simplified to these handful of characters. Because if you don't know how to beat them, then you're going to lose to them most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And there's exceptions of like people who master mid to low tier characters, and they become competitive with top tiers because they're so different. Like Hamza's Yoshi.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Yoshi moved from like low tier to mid high tier because of that one player.
Right.
Your deck could be flipped over.
And so I guess like in this case the meta was it was like self propagated by the tier list because
Mm-hmm.
people just trusted that everyone knew everything about the game. But it took those few people who actually explored the mid tiers, the low tiers, to make changes and to push changes in the tier list.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is like the tier list is only a competitive, or the tier list is only a collective opinion, and
Mm-hmm.
it gets more correct over time with more data. Uh, and I guess it does create this value judgment on a meta. And you brought that up with the SNK Capcom SNK game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so people believe in the meta that the tier list tells them, and that tells them to pick the high tiers only.
Right.
And so there's no development of lower, mid, or middle tiers,
Okay.
especially at the end game of like the lifespan of the game. Is that a bad thing? I'm not sure it is, because like there's always going to be some characters that are a little bit better. Balance is only so much balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the perfect game is we're both playing the same character. It's like footsies or chess. That's gonna get that could be like extremely deep and interesting like chess, but it could also be really boring for a spectator. And that's what's
True.
cool about fighting games because they have different characters with different tools. Um, I guess what I'm saying is if we want variety in our fighting games, we have to accept that there's going to be some imbalance,
Right.
and therefore there's going to be something of a tier list eventually.
True.
Um, so like to say that this fighting game design of having like different characters all the time will eventually mean the game will be simplified. Uh, I guess it's kind of just true for competitive players.
I guess so.
Like maybe it's just a hard pill to swallow for people who just want to have fun.
Okay.
Uh, like I experienced this lesson, I guess, card games because I always wanted like like the dream is just like a balanced card game where you can play anything you want.
Right.
But it's never the case. Like I grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh, and the game is never balanced out. It's
Right.
always balanced around the first or the latest cards. The latest archetypes are balanced against each other to a certain extent.
Right.
And like the best metas are either the tier zero metas, which have this deep like chess like back and forth, or it's these circular metas where one deck like deck A beats deck B, B beats C, and then C beats A. So losing
Right.
rock paper scissors.
Okay.
And that's like in a sense that's a simplified meta too, because we're not considering like the deck from 10 years ago, which has no support and can't keep up. That's like what advanced meta was advanced for.
Right. But even I'm more against where that direction is. Like that's a conversation on its own that I don't
Yeah,
like. So that type of thing is a conversation that I would like, but it's not
yeah,
for me to fully define. As far as much card games as I've played, I understand that there's an imbalance in card games, but at the same time, I get that there's always going to be some discrepancy of power. But I always ask that it has to be like less power as you're going up, because it's unfair to the newer people as they're coming in. That now all of a sudden you have to deal with this much power coming into the game when they weren't here to experience it first.
I don't know about that. So like, hold on, just to tie this all up, I brought up Yu-Gi-Oh because I had to learn basically to accept power creep metas
Right.
and like learn to appreciate the game in a way where the company's gonna make powerful cards to sell, and not every deck can be balanced against each other.
Right.
And so even though I couldn't have this like rainbow Christmas land of mega balance and also mega variety,
Mm-hmm.
I could appreciate small slices of the meta. So like at the top tables, there's a circular meta or a tier zero, which has something interesting to learn.
Right.
And then the casual tables, you could have like house rules where you're banning hand traps. You're only playing a certain tier ban list. Um, or like in Magic, for example, like the Pauper format, you can only play common cards, and it just creates a different game.
Right.
I guess fighting games are kind of the same. You can either choose to participate in the competitive, quote unquote, simplified meta,
Mm-hmm.
or you can try to explore the quote low tiers for yourself.
Right.
Learn why people say they're bad competitively. Learn how to have fun anyway.
Right.
So like I guess we're kind of uncovering a presumption here about like you have to win in order to have fun.
Yeah. I'm not even really a guy for that. I'm not really a guy about that, honestly.
I think there's some truth to it because I remember hearing randomly like animals will play with each other to learn how to hunt. Um, but even if there's like a really big like up in the litter or something, they have to let the smaller dogs win sometimes in order to be able to play with them.
Right.
Or like they don't want to have no one to play with, or else they won't learn how to hunt. How to like run
Okay.
around.
Okay.
So So do you need to win to have fun? Not necessarily, like from a logical standpoint. But like since this is entertainment, the answer is practically yes.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe this whole problem uh, is about game now. And so like how do you
It could
balance the
be.
needs of like the competitive players against the casual players or the collectors or like whoever's in your game?
Right.
And that's like an ongoing unsolved problem. Uh, yeah. Wow. This actually goes pretty far. So
It does.
yeah, I guess pick a point to jump off from there because that's a lot.
It is a lot. Cause, all right. So when we're speculatively talking about how how card games are played, or even how fighting games are played, isn't that more of a community problem when you can't like correctly enforce it?
What do you mean how they're played?
Well, mind you, anything we play, or at least the games we do play, are usually community driven. Both fighting games and some card games. Some card games are endorsed by its company. Some are just endorsed as a community sense because of slight popularity sometimes, or at least cult popularity. Sorry, because I'm trying to like focus on and off table. So,
I'm just kind of confused. Like you brought in this idea of how a game should be played. So how does that connect
how
with the
a game
meta
should
that
be
we've
played?
seen
Okay.
or talked about?
All right. In this case, I would use that as a better example of I would rather you have fun with the game first, even if you choose later to sort of take it in a competitive level. There has to be like some controlled level to where you play a game first.
Kind
Sort of
of
like
get what
one of
you
those sort of one of those agreed levels to where sort of like an agreed level to where a new player should start. Is that like is that like more is that like
so
a
like a
little bit
starting
easier?
town. Like if I'm in an RPG, there's a starting town, or like in Dark
Mm,
Souls, there's a tutorial level.
no.
Okay. So what do you mean?
But alright. When you're dealing with when you're dealing with something that has a insinuated
This
when you're
fucking
dealing with something that has an insinuated level of difficulty as you move upwards, not like we're not gonna use Dark Souls as an example because that's a game with controlled difficulty. Like the higher you go, you will insist that it gets more difficult versus you being in a controlled environment where the difficulty only goes up as you would prefer it.
I feel like I'm missing something because this sounds like skill-based matchmaking.
It sounds like skill-based matchmaking, but what I'm no, what I'm sort of positioning for is not a hmm. I'm partitioning for not necessarily skill based matchmaking, but simple objective decision making. When it comes to like overheads, when it comes to overheads community wise, because usually when you're dealing with a figurehead, you'll constantly usually when you're dealing with the bigger names, you're always constantly asking like where's a good place to start? Like what smells it? What should I do first? Because usually even when you're new, you'll always ask for someone's advice first when you're first starting a game. And I feel that doesn't that it's unfair to sort of put them at a higher pedestal when they're just starting.
Kind of get what you mean. So the situation is like a new player,
Yeah,
and it's unfortunate when they enter a development meta
yeah,
because they won't ever get like the exploration phase.
yes. I know I made it sound
Okay.
confusing because I confused myself for a second.
Oh, it's all
But
good.
that's
Yeah, this
kind
doesn't
of
know.
what I'm going for. It doesn't feel fair that when a person gets introduced into something new, the difficulty is already too high because they're just learning it and now they're sort of forced to learn. It was like sort of forced to learn by adaptation. It was by forced adaptation.
Hmm. I want to challenge that
So,
a little bit. So
sure, go ahead.
let's say a game is completely brand new.
Okay.
I guess the reason a player would want to play it is just interest in the game for some reason.
Right.
Because they haven't seen it been played before, or if they have it in an ad or something, then they thought that was
Okay.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
So they start playing it for the first few times, and everything is either just like random messing around, or it's experimenting intentionally. And so the player having no knowledge to lean on, and also everything is new. So that's the situation. Let's compare that to the player who walks into Melee with like 20 years of online knowledge that they can look at,
Okay.
um, and people they know who could show them what characters can play, what they can do.
Right.
So their experience is they could do the new player thing of just mess around, but they also have the knowledge and the bias of the people that they know and the people they have access to, so like the internet and the tier list.
Okay.
Uh, so I guess the real difference there is that they have a person to guide their experience, or like a tier list,
All right.
because they could always just learn as people did in 2001 or 2002, whatever.
Which was like what, trial and error?
Yeah, trial and error. Like you just pick up the game. I'm gonna press one. This is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm just gonna play a character because it looks fun.
Right.
And then just the hard.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I mean, in a sense, it's honestly a different game, right?
it
Because
is.
there's no questions to answer. Like when I say questions to answer, I mean like there's no threats to adapt to.
Right.
Um, so like if I'm gonna bring back Guilty Gear, Soul has round start bar slash, and for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, it's like you start standing still. The moment the game starts, you can press a button and your opponent's in range.
Mm-hmm.
That seems pretty messed up. But there's an easy answer. The opponent just walk back. But if they don't know that, they're going to be blocking it. And suddenly they're -2. And Soul has options to pressure them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So where am I going? Like, so the tier list and then the knowledge of their friends. I guess it helps them skip all of the exploration. But I mean, I guess there's another issue with that. Because when they enter a developed game, their opponents are already in the development meta. So, like, unless they join the game with someone who doesn't know what it is, like two
Mm-hmm.
brand new players, then they wouldn't have that exploratory phase at all
Right.
without that kind of person to play.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're joining a community, you're joining the people there with that meta knowledge.
Right.
So I mean, I guess what I'm saying here, roundabout, is that games are also the people who play them.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a big lesson I learned when I quit Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I just, oh well, okay. So I quit Yu-Gi-Oh because of the power creep, And so I tried niche games. Like I tried Forcible. I tried wow, White Shorts, but no one
Right.
played it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a couple games here and there, but I saw everyone playing Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, and
Right.
so I had to pick one of the big games if I wanted to play with people. And
Right.
so then I picked Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I learned was that well, you have to play games against people. It's a stupid lesson, but like it makes a lot of sense because a perfect game with no one to play with is not a game. It's kind of just
Right.
like something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I just went off the rails there.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're
Yeah, I
fine.
tend to do that.
No, you're good.
So, so we were trying to connect this back to what you think a meta should be, and so like there's just two threads here. So like, how does a community enforce the type of game that it wants to play? And then that's one. And then two is how does a developer enforce? That's a weird way to put it. Enforce a game that it wants players to experience,
Okay.
or that they want players to experience.
Mm-hmm.
So like again, an example from Melee. Uh, so this also is happening in like the FGC, but like the hitbox Smashbox controversy.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird calling it a controversy, right? It's kind of just an evolution.
Right.
Um, so Melee and fighting games were. Well, I'll just talk about Melee. Melee was designed for the GameCube controller.
Right.
And then people adding extra peripherals were like adding a different way to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then in some ways they're adding a different game. Because in one sense, the game is like, the thing we see on screen, the thing we play. But in Melee, because things are so hard to learn, the game is also like the skills you learn and like a test of your skills. And then some people in the community argued that your skill using this controller is part of the game, and not your skill with a different controller playing Melee. And they argued like that was kind of a different game.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people thought they had to enforce the GameCube controller as the standard for the community, like for the game they wanted to play.
Right.
And like there's an ongoing argument even today about the legality of like leverless controllers.
Right.
Like Melee is especially weird because it doesn't just have 8 directions on the neutral. It has like analog control, so there's like degrees of a certain direction and 360 degrees in a circle.
Right.
So there's a lot to balance and a lot to consider. For one, the GameCube hardware is not in production anymore.
Right.
And so finding good, functional, let alone good controllers for competition is bullshit. Because there are just some controllers are better than others.
Right.
So like eventually they had to concede to using some mods on game controller, and this led to a little bit of a slippery slope, where the mods and accessibility features for regular controllers were being used to justify the levels. And that's kind of where it is today. And now people are even talking about like standardizing mods in the game because they found like RNG mechanics that they find to be unfair.
Right.
So like largely, I guess just to summarize, the Melee rule set now is focused on figuring out the kind of game they want to play and enforce on their community.
Right.
And that's totally divorced from like Nintendo's or Sakurai's influence from like the early 2000s developing the game.
True.
Because like they were thinking about a casual player and the people they would sell the game to. But today we're thinking about the skills we want to test with our simplified meta.
Very
Because like
true.
again, they don't even use items. They use like 5 stages out of like 25 in the game
Mm-hmm.
or more.
Right.
So certainly it is a simplified meta compared to all the possibilities that could happen in the game. But it's like curated.
Mm-hmm.
So simplified is kind of disingenuous. Wow, this went off the rails totally. Um,
Well, it's because a conversation like this has a lot of factors. It's
yeah, I'm trying
it's
to
a
connect it
commu-
back.
it's a community factor. It's a enforcement factor, which you brought up, and I think also at a particular point it's uh, community factor, enforcement factor. How new is the person? How willing is the community to teaching that person? And what's the reward for going that high?
Okay.
So I'm only asking. Not. I'm not. I'm only asking. I feel like there's another question we're missing here that is extremely pertinent, and I don't think I know it yet. This is kind of like my problem because I brought it up, and I'm. What's the answer? Like, what's the question here?
Well, we can talk about it. So, like, I was gonna bring up like the developers side of it, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like somewhat their responsibility to define the game that people are gonna try out and pick up for themselves.
Yes.
So, like, maybe your like the question you want is in that area, because like it is true that the community decides how to play a game, but the developer decides what game people will look at.
Right.
So there's like even an even broader like layer of decision making,
Mm-hmm.
because like the developer's actions 20 years ago determine what happened today, like what is possible today, and
Okay.
then players picked what they wanted to do from those possibilities. So like, does maybe your question live in there?
Would it be in a developer issue?
Like, so try to describe your issue that you're
No,
experiencing.
no, no. It's because now if I'm debating between developer and community, it's how much has the community done to harm new players, and have developers honed in on that particular issue and are trying to rectify it to be different.
Okay, I was gonna try to avoid this term, but I think it's making a lot of sense now. So essentially, what we're talking about here is a safe space.
It
uh,
sounds like that,
yeah,
and
because
and
like
I
a new
hate saying
player,
that. I
well,
hate
it's a
having that
buzzword.
term come up.
Yeah, it's a buzzword. So yeah, I mean for sure, like a new player exposed to the top level meta
Mm-hmm.
can only really enjoy it as a spectacle,
Right.
because they don't know they don't know how to do what's going on, and sometimes they don't even know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So like a noob is only really safe from the top level meta at a distance.
Right.
And so what's the developer's role in making a new player experience where a new player doesn't feel overwhelmed and is motivated to quit? That's quite a good question you gave it. I don't know how to
Part
follow that.
Let's see. If I had to, if I had to put my opinion on it, I would have to put it towards. Not only does the gameplay have to be at least accessible towards a new person. I'm not saying it has to be perfect. I'm saying it just has to be accessible towards the next person, towards a newer person coming in, which is kind of in the direction of where games should be, or where they're going now, where it's making more logical sense that that's where it's going, like that's the direction. Like they're making it for newer players to come in. Wait, is it?
Yeah, but also to keep them, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it
I've
sort of
noticed
feels like
fighting game. Yeah,
it
go ahead.
sort of seems like the appeal right now is that they want not only these newer people to come in, but they want them to feel welcome. I'm trying to stay away from sounding like a weirdo here. They
No,
want
go ahead.
them to sound. No, they want them to sound welcome without feeling like they're gonna get their shit pushed in.
Uh, I think some game developers do that, but then others like to bring back the Dark Souls kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like playing a hard game is the appeal, uh, and so even a new player is approached with this advertising like, "This is a difficult game. Do you want to have a hard time?"
Right.
And so it's made for people who want to challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe part of the question is how do you sell that premise? It's not necessary your game has to do that. It doesn't have to be hard. But
Right.
like if it is, then well like maybe the onus is just on the developer to find the market. And so like there's no way a casual, let's just say Fortnite player, wants to play Dark Souls, um, like just on the face of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm a Genshin player. Why do I want to sweat?
Is it from enjoying? From what I understand, it's usually like an enjoyment of the game. So much
Yeah,
that you're willing to dedicate more than usual time.
yeah. So the question at that point is, well, for the player, the question is, what do I want to get out of my entertainment? Some people want to struggle. Those are Dark Souls players, fighting game players.
Right.
Some people want to relax. Those are like the Stardew Valley Minecraft players.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, there's a spectrum because I could play Minecraft and maybe I'm into parkour,
Right.
and that's not like casual. It could be, but
Right.
like speedrunning is not casual. So I guess knowing your market, it's kind of like it's kind of like what do they say in card games? Know your role. Are you aggro or are you combo? Are you what is defense? I forget.
Control.
Control. There you go.
Uh, I'm gonna ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is it tragic that it's like that?
Yes, that's my emotional response. Yes, because there is still that fantasy. Like people want one game that everyone plays. People want the card game with infinite variety and also infinite balance. Uh, that's obviously just too difficult because Magic's been not doing that for 30 years,
Right.
and they're still successful. Same thing is true for Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc.
Right.
Fighting games have largely been the same since Street Fighter.
Very
Like,
true.
there's innovation, um, but it's so incremental, and like the premise of like play hard game, winning is fun. That's not gone away at all.
Hmm.
And also, the meta balance stuff we talked about, it hasn't gone away.
Okay.
So I mean, like in a sense, it's tragic that we can never reach, or barely ever reach the pinnacle of balance that we want. But there's, I guess, there's a couple of standout examples that we can appreciate. Those few metas in Yu-Gi-Oh that were tier 0 or circular.
Right.
So, like, I guess it's just the tragedy in it is that it's an ideal, and so we have to like cope with ideals not being reality.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I agree. It's tragic because we can't have everything right.
So.
Yeah.
Not to not to like doom and gloom, but
I'm gonna do argument. We can doom. Let's doom.
if we doom and gloom it, then it's literally just wait. No, let's see that.
It's literally just what?
It's no. It was a skill on the table side.
Oh. I can't believe you guys are playing silent. Like,
it's because it's more like we're trying to like let the conversation flow normally, and even when like I have like a moment when I'm not necessarily looking at the game, I can more focus on the argument I'm trying to make, and then when it's my turn, I know exactly what I'm gonna do, so it's not that much that I'm using up.
Yeah, you guys must know these decks really well.
Nah, it's just he's played that deck before, and this deck was made today, so.
Okay, wow. That's impressive to me. I could not focus on a new deck while talking to you.
No, it's hard. No, it's hard because we've been trying to find games where the focus doesn't need to be downwards all the time, where you can have a conversation and still feel like you're not just going, oh, my eyes are on the screen 100%. Because every time you do that, it feels so unfair to the people that are watching you. So if I had to doom and gloom it, I would doom and gloom it like basically look at what we have now, look at where we are now, look at how far fighting games have gone now, and the amount of damage that has been put in that can't be undone.
What do you mean, damage?
Well, if it's tragic, that means there's some sense of damage that's been done. For having, for having everything be still have good gameplay, there has to be a downside. So the game is good, but you don't get new people, or the game is basic, but you get a lot of people. It's the trade-off. That's sort of like the Street Fighter 6 trade-off. Whereas I feel the game is basic and it brings in new people, everyone thinks the game is complex and brings in new people. When in reality, it's just Street Fighter 2 again, but with more graphics.
Yeah, in general sense, you can say that.
Yeah, that's So that's
where does your concept?
Sorry. Okay, you were asking a question.
Where does your concept of damage come in? Like, what got damaged in between?
What got the word damage in?
Yeah.
Well, when I associate the word tragic, even from the normal Greek sense of the word tragic, it means that some damage that's either one, irreputably been done to the point at which the trade-off has to be extremely high, or there has been no changes to the point at which you have the same opinion regardless to how much you do, is how I'm assessing the word damage. We can say they need to innovate fighting games for like the remainder of their life, but we know, but almost every fighting game player understands that there's only so far fighting games can go to where you then lose your core market. Like if we like want to talk about the best example, we could talk about we can talk about let's talk about God of Rock.
What is it?
God of Rock was a rhythm fighting game that came out that was made by Modus. The only reason it got nominated for a Fighting Game of the Year award is because of the genre it fills out. It is a rhythm fighting game. The tragedy of that game is there were people that were willing to give it a chance, but immediately it just shit the bed.
Okay.
No, it's like no developer support past it. There were people that were wishing for that game to get, you know, full support. They were looking for mods to turn the game sideways because having a versus rhythm game where you're playing the game in a sideways horizontal coming in form is bad because now you're sort of like looking at the UI of the music and not the UI of your health bar. So you're adding too much. They said, "Hey, can you make this vertical so that way my eyes are drawn downwards and then upwards?" Like how a Guitar Hero was. You can see
Yeah.
when you're not hitting notes and then you see your score going down. If there was a way to put the health bar on the side and to have like made it so you see your notes being hit or not being hit, or like when your special was available or when it wasn't available, it could have made money. It could have. The problem is when you're dealing with a company that was made from a guy that used to play fighting games that left from one company to go to a different company, he thinks he knows, and the community tells him otherwise. So when you start trying one thing, you immediately take away your core audience because you don't know that your audience doesn't want that or that they're trying to give you support that you're not doing.
I'm trying to
So
understand. Is that an example of damage done to the genre?
that's damage done to the genre by the developer.
I don't see how that's damage done to the genre.
Because the guy that made the game is a former fighting game player.
Well, why is this one guy's like issue
Because he's
affect the genre?
because he's developed one good game before. That's how he had the in community cred. His name was like more recognized in the fighting game community set of people. But when the company at total doesn't listen, how do you get to them and then try to get all this attention that you want to this game, but they're not listening to you?
I still don't see how this damage to the community. Because I mean, it sounds like it's certainly damage done to that guy's reputation. Uh, and I guess you could say a bridge was burned between like fighting games and rhythm games.
Right.
But I mean, the bridge wasn't there before this guy,
Right.
and so was anything really lost? I mean, no. That's one way to see it.
All right. You know, let me know. So let me try to do something fair
I mean, because you say damage, but it doesn't seem like you can damage a zombie. Uh,
Okay.
like maybe you could kill a like make it irrelevant. I could see that,
Okay.
but that's
Maybe
more
the
like damage to the culture than not really the genre. And if they call it damage, is like I don't know. That's to say like there is a place it's supposed to be.
right.
Like who can say?
Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm using the word damage too liberally
Yeah.
here. Maybe not damage. Maybe just the
Fake damage.
consequence of the consequences. The consequences from decisions.
Sure, consequences. Yeah. It's not necessarily damage, but it's certainly an outcome.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. So. um, Is there anything else you need to go over about this that wasn't fully discussed?
wait. Say that again.
Is there anything that we should discuss that we haven't fully gone over? Or should we try to tie it back?
Well, I think I'm still curious about what your sentiment is, like about some kind of problem in game design, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we've identified it yet. Like, what's the
Alright.
sentiment, first of all?
What's the sentiment?
Like, the idea is similar to it's tragic that games aren't perfectly balanced, or it's tragic that they're not perfectly fun or something.
It might just be me being a little bit over dramatic, or at least being too hyperbolic with it.
Well,
It
yeah, but
might
I
be
mean, maybe there's something there.
being too tragic. Because there are
Yeah.
just some things now that are not unexpected, but more, but more typical. If I had to use current day design, and I would like to use current day design, we'll use sort of, let's say, let's use Mortal Kombat 1 store, and then we'll use Street Fighter 6's store. In Mortal Kombat 1 store, and we had enough
Wait,
controversy from that.
did you say store or story?
No, store. The
Okay,
store
like
for both
marketplace.
Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat 1 and Street Fighter 6.
Okay.
See, this is now about design in a developer sense. That was not the developer's intention, that's the company's intention.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure this is like not a perfect assumption, but a knowledgeable assumption that both Capcom and Warner Brothers did notice the success that came from Genshin Impact, Fortnite, and other mobile games, to where their shops were more similarly designed, but not necessarily the exact same way.
So we're talking about like selling cosmetics and battle passes.
Yeah, we're seeing more of the consequences now becoming more monetary than design efficient.
Okay. Yeah, the focus is different. Yeah. Well, I
Where we
mean,
can,
it's always been that way.
but it hasn't. On 4, they gave you almost everything. The only difference
Street
was
Fighter
when
4?
we got to 5. If you remember how bad 5 was when it launched,
Yeah.
it was bare bones. It was had nothing, but it cost $60. But they expected you to buy more characters, and they had to update the game over time to where that's what we were typically calling, modern day game design. So where design now was widespread across the board, even in fighters, um, have sort of had to suffer the wrath of being equated to modern day double dipping tactics. You're having to buy characters but also spending money on cosmetics. You're getting a game in its bare bones system and being expected to tolerate it while at the same time complaining about it. You're allowing UI systems to look similar while at the same time delivering almost no value. Can we at least agree that that's a thing?
Yeah, that's certainly a thing. I think what you're bringing up is like tension between the business model and then the game.
Right.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah, that's. I think it's definitely a more pronounced problem today. Because game designers are better at serving the business model, and by that I mean they're better at taking our money, or rather convincing us to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
So like gacha pulls, the multiple fake currencies that let you forget about what a dollar is
Right.
and how much you're spending. So it's like they learned how to manipulate our spending, and that's being
Yes.
leveraged by business to charge more for less of a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly true, and that's not how it was like 10 years, 15, 20 years ago. Uh, but I mean, fundamentally, they're both still like capitalistic business models.
Right.
And so even if it's a $60 box price for a complete experience, no DLC, no extra, it's still them trying to part your $60 from your bank account. It's just now that just today games are more expensive. So if I'm playing Genshin Impact, I could be playing for free, or I could be keeping up and then experiencing the new stuff as it comes out,
Right.
and paying maybe like a couple hundred just for a new character.
Right.
And so I guess like the business people have passed the price to us. So like instead of saying this game is worth $60, they're asking us, will you pay X dollars for even just a piece of the game? And honestly, that's been true for card games for fucking forever.
Yes. That's
Like the first
definitely
gacha games were fucking Magic the Gathering,
Mm-hmm.
and before that, baseball cards, but those weren't games.
Yes.
So really, it was Magic.
Right.
Where am I going? I mean, okay, so I guess like you've identified, like, yeah, business models conflict with game design, and when it shows through too much, like when release games are bad, like Street Fighter V or No Man's Sky, then it's ass and people will complain.
Correct.
But then when it's good, so like Genshin Impact has a lot of appeal for casuals,
Mm-hmm.
then they will pay, the whales will pay money just to get their new waifus fast.
Yes, they will.
No Man's Sky, when developers actually put like work and game design behind it, it became worth it to play that game.
Mm-hmm.
Same for Street Fighter V. On release day, it was bare bones trap, but before Street Fighter 6 came out, like it was amazing. Like there was maybe one balance problem, but like it was a very fleshed out, developed game.
Very true. Very true.
Uh, so like I guess maybe like an overall theme that we're having in this conversation is like what should developers be thinking about, and it should be like long term balance. It should be the new player experience, and it should be uh, deciding like what kind of business model
Mm-hmm.
your game should have, or whatever. And it is good that like game players think about the business model, because it's like online you'll see tons of entitlement, like people play my game wrong, or my game's the best, and I don't know, bullshit, like people asking for nerfs. Um, it's just their own experience in their own little bubble.
Correct.
But I mean, there could be hundreds of people behind making your game, and there could be millions of dollars.
Very true.
So yeah, I don't know. These are big questions.
It's always like it's always good for like a good. It's always good for a
If we could,
conversation,
oh yeah,
particularly.
like maybe we should bring this back from like large scale, what a game is and what the companies do.
Mm-hmm.
We should bring this back to like what players want.
Right.
And so that's why we see so much success in indie companies today, because they have the freedom to really know what the players want and not be beholden to like corporate overlords.
Very true.
And like why every Blizzard game today is people say it sucks, or like why Magic is faltering today, even though it's still the biggest card game, or like I guess behind Pokemon, but whatever your metric is, it has the most players for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so like I mean, some of the strengths of indie are like it can respond quickly to player needs, and it can offer value where the companies won't, the big companies.
Usually.
Yeah, because I mean, like indie developers know that gotcha's bullshit.
Oh, they always.
They know players have some disdain for it, and so they won't even consider it. It's just like off the table for them.
I think it's because it might be because indies have more to prove, or they're more.
That's a good point.
They're more in tune with the community that they support. They're more of,
Yeah.
I've played the same games you've played. I know what's terrible. I know what you don't want to see. So we're gonna do our best with our limited budget to not have to do it, but at the same time, give you what you want from a game. Which, in turn, I love. That is a definite point to them for actually trying. And I give them credit for it. I give them credit for saying, we're not going to tolerate what's going on right now. We'll just give you what the game is. Like it or not, this is just what the game is.
I could go back for a second to that idea that like it's tragic that we don't have ideal games.
Right.
I think the tragedy really is like in the expectations we had as children. We thought such a thing was possible, and now as adults we're realizing that these are unrealizable dream. And the best we can do is reach for them.
Right.
And so that's tragic from when you look at it from the ideal. And that's where we grew up, so we know where that was.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it from where we stand today, it's kind of like a shiny beacon, like a North Star or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't have to be a tragedy. And really, it's a matter of perspective. Kind of like a tier list. To bring it all the way
Kind
down.
of like I feel.
Yeah. It's a concept which describes how we feel. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to define how we play, or rather how we make a game.
True. But when you're when your overwhelmingly vocal majority are the people that pay for it, you can't help but feel a little bit doom and gloom.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's a time and place for it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like again, every model is wrong, but sometimes useful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's good to have something to reach for. But when you say you're not there, that means failure. That's bad logic.
True. So, would we like to give a positive message right now, saying all is not lost, or would we be more inclined to say be realistic and understand that that can happen again? That this type of doom and gloom can exist, but it's not necessarily over.
Yeah, and how's it not over? Uh, well, there's things to appreciate in the games we play. So even if your meta is simplified, it also means it's curated. That's something I brought up before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Even if the game design is like made for a certain business model, there's still places to find appeal. So like
Right.
I heard a convention player's experience about why the game was good, and the reason is story. So like all the side quests and like character backstory is really good for them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's totally separate from the gacha pull system.
Right.
And so like there's still nuggets of enjoyment. It sounds like cope, honestly, but
It's a lot. No. So it's a lot of cope. It's a lot of cope when you're asking for something that shouldn't be that hard to fulfill. But you're trying to think about it in both directions, in both they have to keep making money to stay open, but at the same time we want a good game. It's kind of like answering the question: Does no, it's kind of answering the question: Does Sonic Forces do what it's supposed to do? No, not Sonic Forces. Did Sonic Frontier do what it was supposed to do? Or was it Sonic Mania that kept them alive?
I haven't been in too many Sonic games.
Okay.
I mean, I guess if I was trying to think of like a positive message right now,
Yeah.
let's see. I think it would be like you can still appreciate games. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hmm.
Because I'm thinking of like fighting games are still deep, even even with like accessibility mechanics and like things meant to speed up the game and skip neutral and stuff.
Right.
Like even with that, there's still a lot to do, a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Or like going back to Yu-Gi-Oh, there's still those few metas which are interesting. You know, and people have held on to them, like a Go format or whatever. You know, there's this concept I heard about from actually at work. Someone recommended this uh, like novel, like book about mindset, and the core idea is called the gap in the game.
Right.
And so if you look at the difference between yourself and what you want to become in the future, it's a gap of who you are and what you should be, and that's what you're not. So you're not the difference between you and the person you want to be. But then when you look at the past, the person you were, the difference between who you were and who you are today is the game. And when you can use this gain mindset more often than the gap mindset, it lets you take those baby steps, which lets you progress.
Right.
Because when you think about gaps in your in your person, then you're giving yourself reasons to give up. But when you're looking at the gains that you've made, then you're giving yourself reasons to take baby steps.
Right.
And so, like as players of games,
That's what I hope I am.
right? Like the gap between us and these ideal games is like immense, and you know we can't cross these gaps.
Right.
But even just like having a community to play with, the gains we've made, like just in fighting games, rollback netcode in the last 2 years was insane. You can just have pickup games online now, and they're really decent, or even just like great. And in the case of like Scribe or you know any of these new games that have
Right.
King of Fighters.
Mm-hmm. Even though it took the King of Fighters forever to get it, but that's
No,
different
it
conversation
took
for a
fighting
different
games forever to get it, which was silly, honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
But I mean, we have it now, and that's great. And now that like Grand Blue is free to play, we're gonna see more free and good stuff from fighting games soon. And like rollback is like solidified with Stride and Street Fighter 6. That's like a standard now. If your fighting game doesn't have that, it's just bad. And so like everyone is stepped up. That's a game.
Very true.
I don't know. I guess the grass is greener, but I mean, like I guess it always the sun always comes out or something. You know, I don't know. Some kind of sappy shit.
That sounds really sappy and not good. That sounds like I don't know. I'm not sure where you were going.
I don't know how to make it charismatic, but I think I made my point.
You did, no doubt. You made your point, but I was wondering where the hell that direction was going.
Nah, pulling out of my ass.
I mean,
I wonder if that was a spin for your podcast, huh?
It was. I mean, we're still going. Really.
Yeah.
We're still going. It is because it's just one point, and that's usually what we've been looking for when you're having regular conversation. Just being able to have an extensive conversation for that long to make valid points, or at least you feel like a conversation is being had.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation feels like it has some value coming later.
that's cool. I hope I was able to contribute to that.
Oh yeah. The other person that didn't talk was the one that was absolutely quiet today.
Well, you had to have the gameplay for the Zoomers.
I know. I'm not really, but I was like the one that was quiet today was the only person that didn't say much.
Yeah, just spoken up.
Turn my dick. Hold on.
Yeah, any thoughts about this, Elijah?
Fix the slideshow thing again.
It went to slideshow again? Of
Yeah.
course it did.
At some point during the middle,
course it did.
with the slideshow.
Of course it
you
did.
guys-
Audio is playing for the
No,
most part.
it's because his video is kind of crap for some reason to his desktop. I don't.
What just happened? Paying attention.
This man runs Windows 11 from a Mac.
How else am I supposed to
Okay.
play?
That sounds funny.
What did you just attack with?
She's 25.
Oh.
She's 25 to leader. But see, this is usually what we do when a conversation comes on. If a topic can lead to at least 2 hours of conversation, it can be talked about. The more people we have, the longer the conversation goes, hopefully.
Took the damage.
And the fact that you and I were able to have this conversation for a fair amount of time meant that we were at least doing something right.
I've thought about this stuff a lot.
So have I.
Yeah. Like, I'm still in card games because I guess I'm trying to recapture that middle school magic. Or middle school Yu-Gi-Oh.
So I don't think we're ever gonna get there again, but
No, yeah. Like, I don't think it's possible to be there. But it's still like an idea. It's still like a dream, you know?
mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's also like an adult appreciation of these things.
Oh yeah.
It's like when you know there's so much effort put into making this experience, it's different than as like a childish consumer.
Mm-hmm. Especially when conversation can be had. Elijah, what is that? 25? Or are you trying to beat it?
25, 30.
30? Okay. $30. Let me see if I got it. Do I have it? Damn it, no.
Well, did you have any combos before I did that?
No, I'll let it go because the combo was too late. If you're comboing just to beat it, then go for it. We'll put to your leader for another 25.
Let's grab some more.
Alright.
Take that.
So are you guys live streaming or is this like local recording?
Live streaming.
This is him live streaming right now.
Oh, cool.
If
You're on
doing
Twitch,
it
YouTube?
No, he's on YouTube.
Cool.
I don't think Twitch would let him on from the amount of very, very sus things we say.
Okay. This must have been a very different episode then.
Yeah, this is just sort of like a, ooh, it will be offensive on YouTube, which is what we're doing now.
Okay.
I might need to start recording if I'm doing
It's a
PC.
start, but every step relies on Elijah of upgrading his home desktop.
I mean, I'm down to help you guys with the podcast. Like, if you want to cut down this conversation, like editing, I can.
I'll let Elijah handle either editing
Can't edit for
or offshoring someone for editing. Because even I,
For shit.
Well,
even I,
neither
going
can I,
through all
but-
this, would have to cut so much dead air that there would be skips in card gameplay.
If you guys have well, So like ideally, you'd have separate channels for audio and video,
Up to this and this.
and
I don't think
our
Elijah
recording
does
would be better ideally.
yet. I don't think Elijah does yet. I don't think he uses OBS and Audacity. He probably uses only OBS.
Yeah, I only use OBS. Get rid of these two cores.
Are they dying or are they warping?
They're getting warped.
Okay. So I guess we can try to end it on a good message, without sounding like I'm too hopeful for the future. I'm gonna give you a message the best I can.
Uh-huh. Attack,
And
skill.
tell me if this sounds too sappy, Theo, because I'm trying not
Let's hear
to.
it. Let's hear it.
Alright. Games are bad. It's
Okay.
like
I like
that.
this.
It's like they're gonna be like that for a couple years, and they're not gonna try to stop that hatful trend of games not being that great, but a lot of money being put into it. However, the only solvable solution I see for a dreadful future that we're running into wall first is with your wallet. It may sound like the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life, but it is actually the most legit statement you will ever hear. In reality, everything relies on you not buying it. If you don't buy it, they listen. If you do buy it, then there's no point from them listening because you've already bought it.
True.
So the best option right now, as game consumers, anywhere and everywhere, is read up. Well, not necessarily read up. Find someone who you deem reputable, and then find someone else who you deem reputable. Then find someone behind that. Then get as many differing opinions as you can and look for a similar, if not common, similar if not common point between all three. If that point is bad, then there is no point. Then there's no disputing that is an agreeable point.